And the other thing is, to save money, a lot of the companies will hire a kid with a computer
Mm-hmm.
and put them on salary and or pay them a contractor's fee, probably, and say, here, make something for us.
Well, and that's true. I can, and I've told any number of people this. At Spruill and Hicks, the highest we had, I think, at one point in terms of personnel was we had 11 people, and we were working hard. I can now do, in my own office, at my computer, the entire an entire week of work that it took 11 people to do. So you're talking 55 work days. I can do it alone in half an hour.
And this is not a reflection on you. I'm not making a statement about you, but is that another reason why the work probably has declined in quality? Because
Yes.
you don't have the brainstorm sessions anymore. You have one person who locks himself in and he's told, here's your budget, put something together.
Oh yes, and brainstorming gets to be very expensive.
Yeah.
I used to, when I was small and competing against the larger agencies, it would drive them crazy. I'd walk in and say, these people just come in and they had 8 people. Now, imagine if you go into their office and there are 8 people sitting around. Start thinking of what that costs you an hour. I can walk in and I can cost you a lot less.
Given all this, Steve, what would your advice be if you were called today by an ad agency here in town, said, Steve, we want you to consult. We know that times are going to be getting tough. What should we do? Should we lay off people? Should we charge more? Should we try to go into web? I mean, what advice would you give an agency on the brink?
I would tell them to reduce their size. People aren't going to pay for more people. Basically, an advertising agency, as you and I would know an advertising agency, has become like a law firm. You have a lot of very
billing
expensive
hours
people,
and, yeah.
and it's a billing mill. It's the old thing, it's not whether the ad works or whether the ad wins awards, it's are the timesheets filled out. And it gets to be that way, and advertising becomes enormously expensive. Years ago, when I was a kid, shopping meant going downtown to a department store. And you'd go down and there's a department store and sporting goods was here and clothing was there. And then the malls developed. And you had 4 department stores surrounded by 140 specialty stores. Well, the same thing has happened in advertising. Okay, we need a writer. We're going to go hire Marlo Kirkpatrick, me, there's half dozen pretty good people out there. Why do we need all the freight of everything else? Well, you look at Federated and the department store chains, they're swirling the bowl. Same thing is happening in advertising agencies. They've been outflanked just the same way the big retailers were.
And I have to relate this story, and I've told it before, and this is the, since the birthday's coming up, this is the old codger coming out in me. But when I started in print in '91, Steve, it was like shooting fish in a barrel. We would do, as all business publications do, the old Jackson Business Journal would do a focus on advertising agencies, okay, which would consist of me calling Danny Mitchell or Ken Sandrich and Debbie Lott and and you or whatever. We do an interview, George Williams, and then say, okay, don't you want to buy an ad? Well, of course they would. And the thing is, what was so funny is that the head of Maris Weston Baker would say, what size is Godwin doing? And Godwin would ask, what size is CeeLo doing? And it became this war. And so the only double truck ad I have sold in my life was in 1992 to Maris Weston Baker. And every ad agency, Steve, spent tons of money with us. Now, I don't see ad agencies do any in-house advertising anymore, and it just shows.
They don't.
They don't. Now, before we get into your books here, and I know there's a lot to talk about, I want to ask you as an ad man, and as a well-respected ad man, 3 questions. First of all, today, what is the best, in your opinion, the best national advertising campaign or specific ad? Number 2, what is the best local ad our campaign? And number three, what was your pinnacle in advertising? What project, campaign, or ad can you look at and say, this was when I had all cylinders running?
Okay, national, one is a couple of years old, I'm gonna give you two. And one very currently running, I mentioned earlier, is Dow Chemical. It's the Human Element campaign. It has no purpose outside of making stockholders say, we're a pretty good company. And that's what it is, it's to buttress their stock price. There was a yogurt that had a woman in a French maid costume.
Sex sales, you know.
Well, yeah, and you know, she's feeding this guy, et cetera, and suddenly the door breaks open and it's kids, and she goes, well, you're home awfully early. It was not Yoplait, it was La Creme. You have to be able to remember the name. Local advertising, I haven't seen any in a while.
You don't think Little Mort should win some awards?
I think Little Mort can go some places. No, I hate car dealer stuff. It's all the same. I think hospital stuff is all the same. I'm not seeing anything that has a lot of thought and breakout.
All
in
I
it.
see with hospitals are pictures of people who don't live here.
Mhm.
We call it clip art in
Yeah.
print, but it's images of people and they look happy and they're playing ball, and that doesn't tell me anything about a hospital. Now I did see a commercial by River Region, which actually showed some new equipment they were using for medical procedures, which at least tells me something they're doing as opposed to having families frolicking on the beach.
Well, I think you see things and you can go the equipment thing, and everyone has some sort of equipment. But it's all happy healthcare professionals. I mean, you talk about something where you can just slap a different logo on it and people couldn't tell. Without a logo, you can't tell one hospital from another. That's bad advertising.
What was your pinnacle? What was the thing Steve Hicks did that you were most proud of?
I was talking a client out of making a dreadful mistake, and it was Cellular One of the Rio Grande Valley in Texas. And they were looking at what they could do to increase their billing. And what they were doing was very interesting. When you buy time on a cellular thing, or at that period of time, if you bought 4 seconds, you'd be charged a minute. If you bought 59 seconds, you'd be charged a minute. It was rounded up. And they started saying, that's what we need to do. We need to change it so we're doing that. Now how do we sell it to the public? I looked for a while and I said, you don't. I said, you stay what you are and you talk about that. And you run it right up Southwestern Bell's skirt. And say, we're the honest ones. You buy 4 seconds, you're charged for 4 seconds. Their sales doubled.
Honesty was the best policy.
In a week. And Southwestern Bell went wild. They threatened lawsuits, etc. And the advertising itself wasn't particularly good. It was a lot of fun to do. It was, Malcolm McMillan was my talent being a Bubba on radio. But it was the thought behind it. Yeah. The execution of advertising is nothing but an extension of the strategy. And the strategy is everything. You get the right strategy, you can do a very simple execution, and it moves. You see a lot of singing and dancing because people don't have an idea.